really exciting for me to be able to tell people that they can make a change and they can have an impact and they have more power than they think. You know, as they come upon problems, there are solutions, and a lot of times those solutions are a lot easier than they think the solutions are. You know, a lot of times people don't even think there is a solution. And so I find great joy in being able to tell people that there is a solution, and that's, you know, that's what I want to do here right now, because one of those challenges that I think a lot of people experience is they encounter something in life and they don't understand how their brain relates to that, and they don't understand that there is a difference, that their brain is just one part of them. Their brain is an important part, no doubt, right? But it's one part of your entire body. And so when your brain speaks, it's just one part of this huge machine, you know, for just to help paint a picture. And that just because what the brain says sounds good doesn't mean it goes, right? We have to understand our brains. And the part about our brains that's important to understand is our brains are there for our survival, right? They are constantly tracking everything that's going on in your life and recording it and saving it and saying, this is dangerous, this is safe, this is comfortable, this is not, this is how I'm going to survive. And that's the key word right there, is our brains are this part of our body that are built to help us survive. And it would behoove so many people to realize that, because I think once someone can see that, they can say, wow, this is my brain talking, but it's only talking from the standpoint of survival. And a lot of times your brain doesn't, you know, it knows what it knows, but it also doesn't know what it doesn't know. And so a lot of times your brain is really only responding and speaking from a place of what it knows, what it's seen in the past. You know, the last time you went out in the sun, you got sunburned. Don't go out in the sun, right? Well, that's ridiculous. You love being out in the sun. Being out in the sun is good for you. You get vitamin D from it. It's very good for your mood. It's very good for your health. And so we don't notice that that's what's happening in the background, is our brain is running this program saying, well, all these other times you went out in the sun, you got hurt, right? You got sunburned, you got dehydrated, you experienced heat exhaustion. But the truth is there's also a lot of great things about being in the sun. And so that's the same thing for life. There's all sorts of great things that maybe the brain hasn't experienced and recorded, and as a result is trying to protect you and keep you in a place of safety, for the sake of survival. And it takes us as individuals to notice our brain and to say, that's my brain talking, that's my brain chattering, that's my brain bringing up past experiences. But those past experiences aren't always the only reality, right? They're just a minute fraction of the truth of the world. And so the same thing goes for anything. You know, our brains are going to chatter. It's going to spit thoughts. It's going to spit emotions and feelings, and we're going to notice those, and we're going to hear our brain a lot of times and let that be the guiding factor for us. And that doesn't always work well, because a lot of times the brain doesn't know what the brain doesn't know, and so it doesn't see the beneficial aspects because it never learned the pattern of the beneficial aspects. It never sat there and said, wow, you know, eating an apple at every meal and water makes my body feel really good, right? Because the brain will record that kind of stuff too. But our brain is a little biased in the sense that it will tend to record the stuff that is negative, that is dangerous, that'll harm us, and not always do a great job of recording the stuff that'll bring us to greater life. It's more focused on keeping us away from death than it is to bringing us towards life. And that's, personally, I think that's because it's our heart that actually brings us to greater proximity with life. When we listen to our heart, we are led down a path that brings us closer to living more fully in every aspect, whatever aspect that is, whether it's health, relationships, anything. So our brain does appear to have that bias, and it certainly is a survival mechanism looking out for your survival. And at that cost, what it tends to do is drive us to, I would say, almost mediocrity, right? It'll just drive us to doing nothing. It'll be like, let's do the bare minimum. Because the bare minimum is safe, right? That's what your brain wants. Your brain wants security, your brain wants safety, your brain wants comfort. So it's going to be like, all right, what do we need to do to survive? Let's avoid everything that we might not need to do, and we will eat, and we will drink, and we will incorporate some bad habits that feel pleasurable because we're really not experiencing much life in the process of living under the influence of our brains, and we will sleep. And so you find yourself in this place where you're like, wow, I'm so lazy, I feel so stuck, I don't really do anything, but I'm very comfortable here. That's your brain. That's your brain talking to you. That's your brain influencing your life. And of course, like I just said, when you're living in this manner where you're really just doing the bare minimum because you're listening to your brain and your brain only wants to do the bare minimum to keep you alive, you experience a lot of negative emotions and you're not really sure why. You're like, wow, I'm alive though, I'm surviving, right? I'm gonna live long enough, like I'm gonna live forever doing this bare minimum. Yeah, but you don't really feel satisfied, you don't feel happy, and that's because you're actually not living from your heart. You're not living in fullness. You're not living under the direction of your heart, which is going to bring you in proximity to life, like I mentioned earlier. You're living under the influence of your brain, and your brain is like, let's not do anything we don't have to. Let's do the bare minimum. Let's only grocery shop. Screw it. Let's order groceries online so we don't even have to do that, because someone might do something dramatic at the grocery store and we might get injured, or we might get in a car crash on the way there. And so that's your brain. That's what your brain does. It's there for your survival, and it behooves you to understand that, because when you live a minimal life for the sake of survival from the guidance of the brain, you don't experience any of the deeply divine and spiritual feelings you were meant to feel, like excitement and joy and fullness and meaning and purpose. And that's because those are all things you're going to experience when you guide yourself from your heart. Right, when you bring yourself in proximity to life. But to live in proximity to life is to live in proximity to death, which automatically makes your brain throw alarm systems like crazy, makes you feel uncomfortable if you aren't used to doing this, and it makes your brain scream. And if you don't know how to quiet your brain and tell yourself it's okay, you're fine, you trust yourself, then you're going to be in a lot of pain, and you're going to go back to that place of living where you're dwelling in a minimal effort, no more than I need to do than to survive place of living. And you're going to seek some sort of feel-good activity to make you feel better about the fact that you're really not doing anything with your life, and your heart, right, is going to be subtly crying that out in the form of just deep sense of I have no purpose to life, right? Because you're living from your brain, you're living from a place of only survival and only doing the bare minimum. And of course your heart wants more, your spirit wants more. The divine and spiritual aspect of yourself wants to live fully and wholly and completely in a deep embrace of everything life has to offer, which your brain is very terrified of. So what do people revert to doing too often? Well, they seek some sort of pleasure to make them feel good in the moment. You're in pain, you don't really want to listen to that pain, because listening to that pain means you have to kind of reject your brain, which is also going to be painful. And so we go to drinking and smoking and having sex and going and doing fun things and distracting ourselves and watching movies. And ultimately, none of these things really make us feel very fulfilled. Sometimes we feel excited to be living a little on the edge in the moment, which is a glimpse of what we want, but it's not the true depth of what we want, because that's still not coming from a place of living from our heart. And so you don't find and you don't feel that you've found the purpose and the meaning that you were looking for. You're not satisfied by it. So that's what happens. It benefits people to understand how their brain works, so they can be aware of it, so they can say, oh man, this is my brain. My brain wants me to live a lazy, mediocre, bare minimum life because it is so comfortable for my brain, right? And then we can kind of look at that, we could chuckle, we could say, well, that's not who I am, right? That might be my brain that wants that, but The rest of me doesn't. The rest of me wants freedom. The rest of me wants openness and the ability to express myself, and intimacy and love and all these great ways to experience life and connect with life and enter union with life, live closer to a depth of living. And it helps to understand that we can help ourselves here. We often don't think we can. Sometimes we do need a little help from others. We might need to communicate a little more with our friends, make sure we have good friends surrounding us to help us live a little more daringly and get off our butts. But it helps us to realize we can help ourselves. We can intervene and do something about this. And we're meant to. We have agency, and we can own our lives. We can pick up that pen, like I've spoken about in the past, and write our own stories. And we can stop living from a place of our brain, stop letting our brain influence our day-to-day habits and lifestyles, stop letting our brain write our stories of what our life should look like so we're safe, and start living a much deeper life. But to be able to realize that we can help ourselves is immensely beneficial, because I think there's so many people who haven't heard that message and who haven't been told you can help yourself, you can be a creator. The ultimate way this is supposed to work is this triangle. You are supposed to be a creator. You're supposed to challenge yourself. You're supposed to guide yourself. And in times where you can't challenge or guide yourself, that's where you need good friends to be able to challenge you or guide you, right? And there's that triangle: the creator, the challenger, the guide. And ultimately we can fill all three of those roles, but it comes from a place of realizing that we can help ourselves. We were not meant to be helpless, right? You are no longer a child, and you are certainly not probably not, I'm going to assume if you're watching this, you're not a 90-year-old person on their deathbed who does need everybody else's help and care in life, which is okay. If you came into this world needing care, you may leave this world needing care. That's all right. But odds are, if you're watching this, you've just never been told, at whatever age you are, that you can help yourself, that you do have agency, and that's okay to do that that's the right thing to do, and that it's very possible for you. So with that, I want to leave you with understanding that you're meant to help yourself, especially when it comes to engaging your brain. You're meant to help yourself realize that your life does mean something. You are valuable, and you are meant to live a meaningful life. And that looks differently for every person, but most frequently that looks like you providing something to the world that only you can give. And one of the biggest challenges that you'll have to overcome to be able to get to a place like that is realizing that your brain doesn't want you to be there, because it's not going to be beneficial for your survival according to your brain. And your brain fears death immensely. So with that in mind, feel encouraged, feel inspired. Own the fact that you can help yourself. And then take a look at your brain. Take a look at the way your brain is telling you to live, and the way you have been living, and the emotions and thoughts and feelings you've experienced as a result of that way, and probably discomfort, right? Notice that, sit in that. Realize, hey, I really have felt very lazy. I have felt mediocre. I am experiencing this deep meaninglessness, but wow, it's really just the hurdle of my brain trying to keep me somewhere safe. I didn't know that. So do something right now. Help yourself.